Hello and welcome to Continental Prime here on News Central Television in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Sulaiman Aled. The headlines for this are: South Africa's president is to restore order amid protests in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. Nigerian monarch regains freedom hours after abductors demand 200 million naira ransom. Tunisia seeks help from citizens abroad amid rapid surge of Covid-19 Delta variant in the country. Details shortly. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has confirmed that the death toll linked to ongoing protests in the country has risen to 10. He addressed citizens there tonight, explaining the reason for deploying the military to affected area. Almost 500 people have been arrested as a result of the unrest. Joining me now is political analyst Tessa Dooms. Good to see you, Tessa, and thanks for your time. Now, the protesters and looters, they started on Thursday. Tonight is the first decisive action Ramaphosa has taken. So what do you make of this?
Good evening to everyone. I think that this is a very late intervention into this, and not only given what has happened in the last few days, but given the fact that this is ultimately a political issue first. And we know that since around January, February this year, there have been rumblings from within the ANC and from within different political factions talking about mobilizing around this moment, around the moment that a defense of Jacob Zuma would be necessary to make sure that he stays out of jail, or in this case now is released from jail. And so you would have hoped that the president and the ANC leadership at large have been working on this issue for many, many months, as opposed to responding in a moment of crisis. But it seems that this is now a knee-jerk reaction, as opposed to a very measured and considered action that has both a grassroots element to it, as well as a security and law enforcement element.
Well, Tessa, just like you've said, some think that the president is speaking too late. But again, some others are also saying that the army coming into the fray will mean, some form of heavy-handedness, on the protesters. Do you think it is something that should be left alone to the police in South Africa?
I mean, that's a double-edged sword question. We do know that the army has had a history of being heavy-handed when dealing with civilians. We saw it a year ago when we had our first hard lockdown. The army in South Africa is simply not trained for things like crowd control. And so to bring the army into a civilian territory really does put civilians at great risk. But on the other hand, you also have the South African Police Service, the SAPS, who do seem very overwhelmed by the situation and not able to control it. But I think the middle ground between these two should not be immediately to go to the military, but to use your intelligence services effectively so that you can have the kind of information that can stop what's happening in its tracks, rather than just enforce the law. I think at this point, when you add violence to a violent situation, you are really not sure what the outcome might be, and we may actually see more bloodshed as opposed to the chaos being decreased.
Well, talking about uncertainty of actions, do you think that this is what Africans are watching in South Africa at the moment? Because on the one hand, a lot of people thought that it was because of former President Jacob Zuma that they went out in protest. But a lot of people's houses and shops have been looted. Does this mean that this is about some other things other than what it is?
I mean, there's certainly a coalition of two issues here. We have on the one issue a real political battle that's happening within the ANC that we are seeing starting to spill out into the rest of society. We cannot ignore the idea that calls for President Jacob Zuma's release are calls that are part of the discourse and the narrative that is in the streets. And whether that is a real or imagined thing for all protesters is neither here nor there. but it is indicative of the idea that behind this, and there is some mobilization here, there are certainly some directed efforts in getting people into different communities and different townships, and you could only imagine that part of that is still about the political agenda and the factional battles that the ANC needs to resolve for itself. But when you put that into the mix, with a society that is frustrated, a society that has a lot of economic challenges, and many, many people who are living under not only poverty, but high levels of inequality. We've got the most unequal society in the world in South Africa. You then put together those two elements and you get the kind of chaos that you see, where people are saying, I have very little to lose, and therefore when I am given the opportunity to participate in something that is perhaps chaotic, but also would allow me to get some food supplies or get something that I wouldn't be able to ordinarily get. It does become a way for people to participate in that for their economic needs, but also a sign that people are frustrated and want their voices to be heard and their needs to be attended to.
From former President Jacob Zuma to what we're saying at the moment, do you think the ruling ANC is losing its popularity by what we're saying in the country?
Well, I certainly think this is a definite moment of reflection for the ANC and a moment in which it has to take stock. Whether or not it's losing its broad support, I think we've already started to see in the ways in which elections over the last few cycles have gone, that people aren't only losing faith in a particular political party, but they're losing faith in the electoral system and in political parties in general. And so the ANC in this moment has an opportunity to either show leadership or to start to capitulate, where people who are still supporters of the ANC look at this and say, well, the ANC is not showing leadership. Even those people who are looting in the streets are asking for leadership from their government, asking for leadership from the ANC. And if this moment does turn into one that is just not salvageable for the ANC, they will certainly see the effects of that at the upcoming elections locally, and of course in 2024 when we have another national election.
So, Tisa, before I let you go, let's talk about solutions. Apart from the military, which you have also agreed with others as being, high-handed in its, handling of this and not being trained with the requisite, training, what else can the government do to get South Africans back to their homes and their offices and restore normalcy?
Well, I think there are two strategies that are needed in this situation. The first is to actually go to ground. The ANC, as a government and as a political party, have always spoken about the fact that they have a strong coverage across this country, that they have people who are leaders in every ward and every part of the country. And it is those leaders that need to be brought in. It's those community leaders that need to be gathered and told, this is how we're going to deal with this. They need information about who it is that has the most sway in different communities, and they need to be in the ground and in communities in order to figure out how to talk their way through this rather than just bring in the military. But the second part of this is crucially important, and you need strong leadership. We need to see a country that is giving some support in terms of the different facets of government, not only law enforcement. There needs to be a health response, there definitely needs to be a social development response here. And people need to feel like their frustrations and their needs are going to be met if the looting stops. That's the only way to respond here, is a developmental response as opposed to a purely force.
Tisa Zuma, thanks for unpacking this for us. Well, in the meantime, the United Nations has expressed concerns over reports of increasing incidents of violent protest in South Africa. A UN spokesperson, Farhan Haq, speaking on behalf of Secretary General Antonio Guterres, said the organizations want to ensure the fundamental rights of people, especially freedom of expression, freedom of peaceful assembly, are upheld. Now, Haq also urged protesters to demonstrate peacefully, refrain from violence, and respect national and local measures to curb the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. The European Union has said it will set up a military training mission in Mozambique to help the government tackle a growing Islamist insurgency and protect civilians. EU foreign ministers took the formal decision at a meeting in Brussels on Monday, although it was not immediately clear which countries will provide the necessary troops. In a statement, the bloc said the mandate of the mission would initially last for 2 years. Portugal already sent 60 soldiers to its former colony in May to run a 4-month program training troops to counter the insurgency, share intelligence and use drones to track militants' movements. In Nigeria's northwestern state of Kaduna, a kidnapped monarch, Al-Hassan Adamu, has regained his freedom after being abducted on Sunday morning. After spending the night in custody of bandits, the Emir of Kajuru was released at about 5 p.m. today. Although the abductors had demanded a 200 million naira ransom, it is unclear if any money was paid for his release. A top official of the Kajuru Council area and the spokesman of the Kajuru Emirate Council, Dahiru Abu Bakr, confirmed the release of the 85-year-old traditional ruler. However, 13 other members of his family who were kidnapped with him are still in captivity. Now, the closure of 13 schools following the kidnap of 140 students and a string of armed attacks on schools in Kaduna State in northern Nigeria have had both security experts and educationists in the country seeing these acts as a threat that could permanently damage children's education in the northern part of Nigeria. News Central's Omolola Ololade has been following this story and compiled this report.
The recent wave of kidnappings continues to worsen the education crisis in northern Nigeria, a region with an incredibly high rate of out-of-school children. This has been a massive disruption to gains that have recorded in years past and now made worse by last year's restrictions imposed due to COVID. With the most recent kidnapping of 140 students in Kaduna State, security experts are of the opinion that bandits no kidnapping students guarantee publicity and government involvement in negotiations, which could translate to huge amount of money in ransom payment. Some of these experts also give practical solutions to dealing with the situation.
The kidnap for ransom industry is more lucrative than legal activity. The average young man in the north who puts kola nut on his head and sells that kola nut, in a year, the profit is likely to may not be more than 25,000 naira. But that same young man, if he engages in kidnap for ransom, he can make millions of naira and with no consequence really in terms of the administration of criminal justice. The ungoverned spaces that exist in Kaduna State, the forest, the mountainous areas that these bandits hide and continue their activities must be dominated like immediately. And once they are dominated, then we would have prevented them from those havens, and more importantly, from using those ungoverned spaces to keep their victims.
On the implication of these abductions on children's education, particularly in northern Nigeria, academicians say the spate of attacks on schools in the northwest is a double assault on the region.
You can't keep them closed indefinitely. They must learn. Unfortunately, some of these kids now are missing these NECO exams that have started because their schools have been shut down. Especially here in Kaduna, a number of schools have been shut down, especially when they're around in areas where, development hasn't gotten there yet. So what do you do? Shut down, maybe as a temporary measure, but it cannot be a long-term solution. So what happens is that you have more children now becoming out of school. And generally that number now just increases the numbers that we already have that we're even trying to solve in the first place.
Although bandits have made a devastating effect on education across northern Nigeria, stakeholders involved must continue to try to fix the problem against all odds, so the probability of having children with bleak future becomes even lesser. Omolola Ololade reporting for News Central.
In preparation for the elections in the 20 local governments and 35 local council development areas in Lagos State, southwest of Nigeria, the State Independent Electoral Commission has organized a forum to explain what is needed for the elections. Now, the forum also aims to sensitize all involved stakeholders of what is expected of them in the July 24 election. News Central's Bernard Akede was at the forum and has brought back this report.
The importance of citizen participation before, during and after elections cannot be overemphasized, especially when such elections are at the local government level, the level closest to the people.
Clear directives and decisions.
And to this end, the government of Lagos State has decided to sensitize the major influential figures who will be partaking in the forthcoming local government elections.
This is one of the means by which we're trying to fight voter apathy. But if we get their buy-in and their cooperation, then their followers will come out and vote. Because people seem to be very lackadaisical and, nonchalant about the whole exercise, which is unfortunate. Because this is grassroots politics, and they should all be involved in who represents their neighborhood and their local government and their wards.
They outside, them there.
Religious leaders, traditional heads, security operatives, party members, as well as youth leaders all gathered at the Afe Babalola Hall in the University of Lagos to attend this stakeholders forum.
They've intimated us to come to see how things is being done. And our own thing is to go back home, interact with our youth, orientate them, and we orientate them on the needs for them to participate in the coming election. Because we are the one agitating for leadership. And it's not possible for you to sit down at home and expect them to bring power to your doorstep.
We need 1 week.
The Lagos State Independent Electoral Commission, LASIEC, emphasized on youth participation during the elections, as the youth play a key role in voter participation and can also be used wrongly to cause mayhem during the elections. In the past 2 months, Lagos State has witnessed 2 protests which could easily have turned violent. For this reason, security during the election is a paramount topic to be addressed.
The primary duty of policemen is to ensure that there are protection of life and property. And as regards this election, our role security-wise to ensure that the election is seamless, security-wise. So we are not going to leave any stone unturned. We are going to ensure that adequate security is provided for all and sundry, both the electorate and electoral officials.
Voters are the most important segment of any election. Our voters cut across. It's not only for last year alone to desire free and fair election. It's for us, as all stakeholders, to make sure that election is free, fair, credible, and non-violent.
Come out, come and vote. Your vote will be protected. We are here to protect your vote.
LASIEC and other stakeholders hope that this forum will help bring forth a free and fair electoral process, which will in turn produce credible leaders to represent the people at the local levels. Bernard Akede, News Central.
UN Human Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet has urged all countries to demonstrate a stronger political will to accelerate action for racial justice and equality. The High Commissioner made the call today while presenting a report recommending ways to achieve transformative change and end profound injustices inflicted for generations. Bachelet said the report is compiled from meeting and listening to family members of people of African descent who law enforcement officials have killed. Now, the report examines how systemic racism against Africans and people of African descent affect their rights in all areas of life.
This is a story that begins in early childhood. Wherever data is available, it shows that children of African descent are often subjected to racial discrimination in schools, suffer poorer educational outcomes, and at times are treated as criminals from an early age. In some states, people of African descent are more likely to live in poverty, earn lower wages, occupy less skilled positions, and face unequal access to adequate housing and quality health care. In light of these profound and wide-ranging injustices, there is an urgent need to confront the legacies of enslavement, the transatlantic slave trade, colonialism, and successive racially discriminatory policies and systems, and to seek reparatory justice. Despite some initiatives towards truth-seeking and limited forms of reparation, including memorialization, acknowledgements, apologies, and litigation, our research could not find a single example of a state that has comprehensively reckoned with the past or accounted for its impact on the lives of people of African descent today. The final pillar of this transformative agenda recommends that states create, reinforce, and fully fund comprehensive processes with full participation of affected communities, to share the truth about what was done and the harms it continues to inflict.
Well, coming up on the news, we look at updates on the coronavirus across the continent as the president of Tunisia takes his first vaccine shot, plus updates on the protest in Ghana. Join us again. Well, if you just joined us, you're welcome. You're watching the Continental Prime News on News Central Television. Now, 1 week since the major opposition party in Ghana, the National Democratic Congress, staged its March for Justice protest, where it presented 8 demands to the Nana Akufo-led government, mounting pressure on an administration they say has performed below expectation. 1 week after the massive protest, what has been the government's response of the day, and what are the expectations of the NDC in the future? Joining me now is the National Women Organizer of the National Democratic Congress, Dr. Hannah Louisa Bissou. Now, Dr. Hannah, thank you very much for joining us on the news. Quickly, you are a prominent voice in your country, serving as Deputy Minister and a Member of Parliament, and now National Women Organizer for the NDC. Help us unpack what the issues are under the Nana Akufo-Addo government.
Well, I want to say good evening to your viewers. Basically, we went on the streets about a week ago, demanding for justice. We marched on the streets, a march for justice and a march against injustice. Basically, what we are demanding, not as NDC, but as citizens and not spectators of this nation, is that the Nana Addo, Dankwa Akufo-Addo's government, we are demanding that they bring the perpetrators of a recent killings of our young ones in one of our communities or our township, that's Edra, where military and police open fire, live bullets on our young ones, the youth. They had gone to bury one of their own who was murdered. If you follow the Ghanaian politics, recently we had a group of young people who came up and realized that this administration has taken us for a ride. It's taken Ghanaians for granted. They came, promising heaven on earth. And the basics that any government would provide for its people, this government has woefully failed. And I usually say that, President Nana, his only legacy will be failure. They feel that he has succeeded in failing successfully. So these young ones came up with a hashtag, Fix the Country Now, where they went around, you get young ones going around and, taking pictures and videos of supposed projects that government to be touted that they have done or executed. And they will be exposing the government and demanding that the government should fix, the unemployment in the nation. It should fix the economy. It should fix our roads. Since the roads that were under construction in the Eswat John Dramani Mahama NDC-led administration, this government abandoned all projects. He should fix the health system. He should fix the educational system, and so on and so forth. Government came up and refused that the youth of this nation should go on a demonstration with the excuse of the COVID-19, and they use the police to put a ban on them. One of these activists, who is also a card-bearing member of the New Patriotic Party, that is the ruling government, the ruling political party, called Kaka from Ejura. He also, from his own locality, will be, taking videos and pictures of the underdevelopment and the hardships that they were going through. Once it was being, announced, touted out there by government that they built roads in Nigeria, they built markets.
Dr. Bissou, apologies. Let me come in here quickly so that we can utilize the time here we have. Your protest on July 6th witnessed what you call a massive turnout, and a lot of people are saying that that protest may have been politically motivated because your party is still smarting from its loss in the 2020 elections. That is why more like a hijack of what the youth were organizing against the government of the day. So the NDC, as an opposition, used that as an opportunity to also, launch its own, attack on the government of Nana Akufo-Addo.
Not at all, not at all. The NDC is a formidable political party, and we don't really need anybody's organization for us to hijack. It's the youth wing of the National Democratic Congress that actually organized our demonstration. The Face the Country demonstration, the government refused or did not allow them to come out and demonstrate against the government. The killings of Ejura came up by the military personnel, and this mounts up to about 36 of military killings under President Nana Addo. He has basically militarized this nation, where he uses the military to, to attack citizens and kill us. So we were demanding that they should bring the perpetrators of the Ejura killings to book because they know them. They sent them. As a matter of fact, the minister in charge of the Ashanti region has admitted that he deployed the military to go and shoot and kill those innocent, unarmed, retreating young Ghanaians.
So is your again, sorry to come in here, is the government of the day listening to your demands?
We hope he does. We have actually given out, 8. We had 8 bullet points that we gave out to government, and we are waiting, giving him 2 weeks to 3 weeks. If we don't hear from him, then we will set out and we'll hit the upper parts of the country. We are not just going to back out. It's not about NDC. We are citizens of this country. We demand that he depoliticize the entire security agencies in our nation. We demand that the military killings should come to an end. We demand that the high corruption that is being found in this country, the impunity, the cronyism in this nation must stop. We demand that the discrimination, the tribal discrimination that has, crept into our national fiber, we demand that it should stop. You see, this issue where hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. This thing where when we make demands, they come out and say, oh, you're NDCs. We are citizens of this country. And NDC is the largest, opposition party in our country. We are potential government in this nation. And so nobody can also gag us and say you can't speak. Because the culture of silence is what has been brought into this country. This government has turned so corrosive that people are scared, like a rusted nail. They are scared to step on it so that they don't get tetanus. So everybody's quiet. Journalists are molested and killed. Journalists are intimidated. Political opponents are also intimidated. They're oppressed. And the killings and the oppression keeps going. This is a democratic country.
Yeah, certainly. Certainly. I think at this point in time, I think we're really out of time. Dr. Hannah Louisa Bissou, many thanks for your time. We do hope that we have you again for more update on developments in Ghana. Now, quickly now, our coverage of the coronavirus pandemic across the continent begins in Tunisia. President Kais Saied has received his first dose of the Covid-19 vaccine as authorities continue the national vaccination efforts to contain the further spread of the virus. Pictures published on social media by the Tunisian presidency showed the 63-year-old taking the jab at the vaccination center in Tunis. It did not say which vaccine the president took. Tunisia has the third highest death toll from the virus on the continent. Now, in the meantime, Tunisia is appealing to help citizens abroad, for authorities declared the country's system had collapsed amid a rapid surge of the Delta variant, leading to increased hospitalizations. In a Facebook post, the Tunisian embassy in France asked diasporans to donate money, medical and paramedical equipment. A spokesperson for the Ministry of Health described the situation in hospitals as catastrophic, with an acute shortage of hospital beds and oxygen, as well as the exhausted medical staff. The army has also been deployed to enforce a new lockdown in some parts of the country that has vaccinated only 12% of its population. Well, still ahead on the news, UK Prime Minister confirms lockdown restrictions will be eased next week. We'll bring you the details right after this. Stay with us. Well, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has confirmed that the easing of lockdown restrictions will go ahead next week, but warns the public to be cautious. Mr. Johnson disclosed this while addressing the press earlier, warning that coronavirus is not over. The Prime Minister pointed out that the virus continues to carry risk for the people, and they must proceed with caution as the pandemic is not over. He also disclosed that strict restrictions surrounding the UK's red travel list and the NHS tests and trace system would remain after July 19. Now, the government of Djibouti is planning to sell part of its stake in the state-owned telecoms company Djibouti Telecom. This follows the launch of a tender process for the company's partial privatization, which it said was a sign of its determination to modernize the economy. In a statement after a cabinet meeting, the government said the state would offer a minority and significant portion of its shareholding to a first-rate strategic partner. The government said the move would help increase the country's global competitiveness and optimize the governance and management of state-owned enterprises. For the rest of the business news, let's go to Telecom on Obanjo.
Hello and welcome. This is business news on NC Continental Prime. I am Telecom on Obanjo. South African power utility firm Eskom says it has suspended service calls in areas affected by protests, citing concerns for the safety of its employees and contractors. It earlier announced that there were delays in service due to sporadic protest action, predominantly in KwaZulu-Natal region and some parts of Gauteng, the country's main economic hub, where Johannesburg is located. Sporadic acts of violence after the jailing of former South African President Jacob Zuma have spread. And talking alternative power generation, the port city of Durban and its own municipality intends to seek proposals for private power generation in South Africa. The municipality has requested for information for the supply of 400 megawatts of power in a bid to ease reliance on national utility Eskom holdings, which has subjected the country to intermittent power outages for more than a decade. It will also allow the city of 3.8 million people, which houses Africa's largest port, to get more of its energy from renewable sources, as Eskom relies almost entirely on coal. Johannesburg and Cape Town have similar plans. The city of Johannesburg will issue a request for information for the construction of a 150-megawatt solar plant, 50 megawatts of rooftop solar panels, and the refurbishment of an idle gas-fired plant that could generate 20 megawatts in September, the municipality said in a presentation early last month. It will also seek information for the installation of 100 megawatts of battery storage. Now, away from that, the weekly Mombasa tea auction held on the 5th and on the 6th, including the 7th of July 2021, which had 12.8 million kilograms of tea offered for sale. The amount and offer increased from 12.6 million kilograms for the same period last year. Commodity offered for sale, 11.7 million kilograms was sold, compared to 10.5 million kilograms for the same period last year, and 11.9 million kilograms sold during the previous sale. The tea auction recorded a slight increase in prices, with a kilogram selling at an average price of $1.66 compared to $1.64 during the previous sale held on the 28th, 29th, and 30th of June 2021, but decreased from $1.73 during the same period last year. Let's also tell you that another Asian powerhouse is investing in Africa's electrification upgrade. This is happening with India's Export-Import Bank, which has extended a $35.26 million loan for a power transmission project being executed by Carpataro Power Transmission in Senegal. The bank signed a credit agreement with the Ministry of Economy, Planning and Cooperation of the Republic of Senegal for the purpose of construction and installation of 225 kilowatts overhead transmission line covering a distance of 92 kilometers towards the Bay of Extensions in Tanav as in Guichor. The bank also said it had earlier supported the construction of 225 kilowatts transmission line for the Tambacounda Kolda Zincontrol line in Senegal by way of a buyer's credit facility of $200 million under the same scheme. The barring of citizens of Africa's most populous country, Nigeria, from accessing Twitter and the eventual suspension of the social media platform's operations came as a rude shock to both the local and international community. I compiled this report on how Twitter-dependent businesses are affected by the development. Twitter, a multimedia microblogging platform, has been inactive in Nigeria for weeks now. The government cited bias in its operations, which it said is heating up the polity. Thousands of Nigerians whose businesses are Twitter-dependent have been rendered inactive. Current NOI polls, however, estimates that 20% of Nigerians use the app for business advertisement, while 18% go there to look for employment.
I joined Twitter and my business got boosted. At least I used to struggle to get about 5 to 10 people to contact me for me to convince them that I'm good at my job. But I was struggling to get about 10 to 15 customers. I got about 100 and above. And then boom, the sudden ban. I was like, ban? For what? We are not even the one tackling the government. So what is our business with this whole thing? And then I had to lay off those assistants working for me. I couldn't pay them again.
Nigeria startups also experienced $377.4 million growth in 2019 and $120.6 million growth in 2020. Data now reveals that the recent suspension results in the loss of about $2 billion every day. Analysts say this is not the best of times for tech businesses and the future it holds.
It's a worry for lots of investors too, because investors are watching from out there, and of course they want to come in. They want to come in to put in available funds that they have to support businesses and to support startups. But then the enabling environment might be stifling out.
Most Nigerians are taking advantage of that.
Regardless, the Nigerian government has ordered Twitter and other internet-based platforms like WhatsApp, Zoom, Netflix, and Skype to obtain licenses from the National Broadcasting Commission before operating in the country. Lekon Onobanjo, reporting for News Central. And that's business news at this hour. NC Continental Prime continues shortly. I am Lekon Onobanjo.
Many thanks, Lekon. Now let's see what Sheon Bankole and her team, the digital team, have up for trending stories across the continent.
Yes, thank you for joining us on this brand new episode of NC Trends. I'm Sheon Bankole. We start off with a particularly sad report that left the Nigerian social media space in an unhappy state on Sunday. I'm talking about the death of Nigerian artist Olariwaju Fasasi, popularly known as Sound Sultan. A statement signed by Dr. Kayode Fasasi on behalf of the Fasasi family disclosed that Sound Sultan passed away at the age of 44 following a hard-fought battle with T-cell lymphoma. News of this tragic loss, as well as clips from his funeral, evoked loads of sad and emotional comments from his family, colleagues, fans, and many others. We'll now take some tributes penned down by his fellow music artists. First, Tools Oniru says, "I'm so confused. We spoke not long ago. You said you were getting better and the doctors were impressed with how you were coping. This isn't it. My heart is with your wife and kids. Hashtag legends never die. Hashtag Sound Sultan." Moving away, we move to this one from Basket Mouth, who penned down saying, "For over 20 years, not once did I see you lose your cool. A wise man, a humble man, kind-hearted, a true definition of a good friend. I'll definitely miss those very early hours of the day that I'll call you and share my crazy ideas with you while taking notes as you throw in your genius touch. You were selfless, disciplined, and professional, unarguably one of the best writers I've seen, a brilliant actor, musician, and even though you never did it, you're one of the best comedians I have ever seen." Finally, we have this one from Burna Boy, and he says that Sound Sultan was so fearless. You inspired a whole generation and left an impact for eternity. An absolute legend, R.I.P. Sound Sultan. Now, Sound Sultan left behind his wife, 3 children, and his siblings, and we hope that his soul rests in perfect peace. We now move to South Africa, where the hashtag Zuma unrest is trending alongside hashtag ShutDownSA as a result of the violent protests spreading in South Africa after last week's incarceration of Jacob Zuma, the former president, for contempt of court. The 79-year-old handed himself to the police last week to begin his 15-month sentence, but the case has sparked an unprecedented legal drama in South Africa, which has never seen a former president jailed before. Now, footage on Monday showed a fire at a shopping center in Zuma's home province, and people were seen looting. Now, protesters responded with live ammunition when riot police fired rubber bullets to disperse them at one of the shopping centers looted overnight. Now, troops have been deployed to assist law enforcement agencies and cool off the unrest gripping both provinces in the last few days. President Ramaphosa has appealed for calm, insisting that there is no justification for the violence. But here are a few reactions to the situation from Twitter. The Pfizer this time put out this tweet. He says, "Can someone please help me understand how looting is going to free Zuma? Like, really though?" Finally, also, we have this one from Stevie Wonder. "Respectfully, could you please inform me why one would support the Free Zuma protest? I feel like I'm missing something. I'd just like to understand why and like what has it done that so many people are supporting him?" Now, that's a question. Also, Libohang Motlong says, "This is not about Zuma anymore. It is South African people expressing their anger through the Free Zuma protest. We've been through so much in the past year having to deal with COVID-19, being locked down, losing jobs, losing businesses, losing loved ones, poverty, and more. Hashtag Free Zuma." Now, that's our own excuse as to why people are looting and protesting in connection with Zuma's incarceration. Finally, on NC Trends today, we'll check out the latest in Ghana. Now, the Christian Council of Ghana has been asked to stop Badu Kobi from publicizing more false prophecies. This follows the general overseer of Glorious Wave Church, Prophet Emmanuel Badu Kobi's prophecy on Saturday, July 10, that the Spirit of the Lord revealed to him that Brazil will triumph over Argentina to win the Copa America Cup. In the end, brethren, Argentina beat Brazil. Like, that was not enough, but Kobe also prophesied on Sunday that England will win the Euro 2020. But it turned out that Italy emerged the new champion in Europe. Now, these false prophecies have sparked several reactions from South African sweeps. Here are a few of them. Don Success says, "Prophet Badu Kobe should be predicting more matches. We'll just bet against everything he says and make money out of it." Now, that's a very hilarious and sarcastic one. Also, I am Dr. Kobo says, as in the effort he puts in disgracing himself is astonishing. The effort he puts in disgracing himself is astonishing. Also, Nuruddin says he must check the network. He must check the network he uses to communicate with God. Sometimes poor connections can make you hear what God has not said. You heard it there. All right, there you have it today on NC Trends. Remember to follow us on all our social media platforms at News Central TV and subscribe on YouTube for more social media trends. Thanks for watching. I'm Shun Bankole. Let's get back for the rest of the news on NT Continental Prime.